start by asking everyone to share in the chat how you've been using, or if you're using at all, Dropbox for teaching. I'm just kind of curious to see if you're already using Dropbox in your teaching. What are you using it for? Probably many of us used it earlier, not yet. Share videos, that's a perfect application. Okay, again, videos, but YouTube is preferred. Collecting assignments via file request, excellent. Sharing articles, lectures, not at all. Okay, so we have a little bit of everything. Yeah, videos, we'll definitely talk about videos and sharing materials, independent study articles, great. So yeah, so I made a list as well. And I think like a lot of the features you mentioned are on that as well. It's okay. What I first wanted to point out before we go and explore Dropbox together is another, like an alternative to Dropbox that some of you mentioned in the chat, and that's Google Drive. And if you're in the School of Ed, then probably there's no need for you to use Dropbox because a lot of the things that we're using Dropbox for, you can just use Google Drive for. But only the School of Ed has the license to use all the Google products, and Dropbox is that CUNY approved product. And that's why I actually went into exploring Dropbox a little bit more. And so I think, like many of you, so now you should see my screen. I first started to use Dropbox just to collect my own files. That was really why I was using Dropbox mainly. And actually, it was during the pandemic that I really discovered Dropbox, because I was teaching one class on the CUNY Academic Commons. And when we moved in the spring online, I asked my students, do we stay on the Commons or do we go to Blackboard? I just gave them the choice. It was really all the same to me. And they said, we just want to stay on the Commons. And that was fine until I realized that sharing materials and collecting homework was just not easy to do on the Commons. At least they made some changes over the summer, so it's a little better, but it just wasn't right. And I discovered Dropbox to collect materials and to also share materials with the class. So what I made for you today is my very first Dropbox showcase. And I'm going to put the link in the chat. Let me see real quick. So you can also follow along. And you see that I was able to personalize this link. So this is also something actually students could make a portfolio with Dropbox. But these are not slides, so I'm just going to gently scroll through this, but I wanted to try it out. It is one of the features. Okay. So these are the two first items I want to discuss. So this is my list about when and why to use Dropbox. So you see a lot of the things that were mentioned in the chat are there. Two additional features are you can use it also for interactive activities that can be during a synchronous session or even for asynchronous work. I also want to highlight the Blackboard integration. And you can do as I did last semester, or as Jeff is doing this semester, use it as an alternative learning management system and just not use Blackboard at all. So the fastest way to get to the CUNY Dropbox is, this is actually a link that is stable. It's not one of those that expires. So you have the link there. And to claim your account, you have to use your add login credentials. And this is important for you to get this enormous amount of storage that you get through CUNY. And also for your students, you would want them to use the login, their own login addresses. And sometimes students and faculty with the tech tools, they don't play, like they seem to be in two different groups, but the integration with Dropbox seems pretty seamless. And I haven't had great issues with getting students on board on Dropbox. Jeff was telling me yesterday that he had to remind his students several times that they had to use their add login cuny.edu address and not my Hunter. And so he said like that was something to point out in his first experience in using Dropbox for teaching. I have in this presentation, everything is also linked to more resources, to guidelines to how to, but basically a first application of Dropbox can be to add, to create, and to share materials. And with adding, I really think that almost anything goes. That's probably not correct, but I have never had a file type that I couldn't add to my Dropbox. So far, so good. In creating the image you see here, this is what you can create with our CUNY Dropbox. So you can create a Dropbox paper, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. That's like the equivalent of a Google Docs. The shortcut is how you add any link. And then you see that the Microsoft Office products are already integrated there. So you can actually create a new Word document from Dropbox directly. So that's something that is an advantage as well. And just like something I discovered doesn't apply to our CUNY application, but the School of Ed people might be able to use this, or you can use it in your own, with your personal Dropbox. If you use it with a Google account, you can actually create Google Docs sheets and slide directly from Dropbox. And then you would see here that would be an option to create a new Google Doc sheets or slides. All right, my mouse is not, okay, here we go. Then how do you share it? Okay, so this is what you would see if you want to share a document. It's very, I mean, like this is very similar to Google Docs and any Google sharing. You can share it with email addresses, with names. So if you put in a student name, they will pop up. All the logins are in the system. Or you can also create your own group. I have a link to that a little bit earlier in the presentation. You can just set up a group and then always share it with your students. So you do that once and then you're good to go. And then you have two settings. It's can edit or can view. Can edit, it's pretty straightforward. Just keep in mind the default setting seems to be that they can download everything. If for some reason you don't want that, then under links settings, that's where you would disable that. All right, so that's to create materials, to share it, and to add them to your Dropbox. I said that in the opposite order, but you get the idea. Now a few words about Dropbox Paper. So Dropbox Paper is basically the Google Docs of Dropbox, a little bit simpler, I would say, and it has a few like extra things that Google Docs can't do. There's a link to a guide if you want to explore Dropbox Paper 101. I think that's actually what they called their guide. And so Dropbox Paper can be an alternative to Google Docs to do an interactive activity during your online class. So I linked a couple of examples. So this is an activity that Jeff did. So he created this Dropbox Paper. So the prompt is here. Then they have 4 groups. And they answer the questions, 20 minutes in their breakout rooms. And the nice thing was that this was all happening in one file. And so Jeff was following along, and you see he added some comments. So that he was following what students were doing, and he was also providing some feedback. So that was really nice. I did something similar in an Italian literature class, where I actually divided them in 2 separate files so that you wouldn't have all this moving around. And so every group then had their own sheet, and they were using colors to indicate certain things in the text. So this was their group activity. And then the nice thing about Paper is you can actually add other files directly within the paper. And so I added, and this is not a link, this is not an attachment. I just added a PDF, and this appears directly in the document. So that I really liked. Because it was an exercise on rhetorical, on style, and they had that sheet that was somewhere in Blackboard. They had it up here as they were doing the exercise. So that I really liked. And so here you could go back. So those are some activities you could do. So this is like the alternative of Google Docs, Google Slides, but if you can use Dropbox for that as well. Then another cool feature of Dropbox Paper is that you can create or use or tweak templates. And so sorry, I see GA. Jeff created this template to give feedback. And so you create this once, and then you create the doc, and you can make that for every student. So I did that with a group activity. I needed 7 copies, but everybody had to do the same. You just use that, you create one template, and then you create the individual documents or the papers. And there's even a library that is full with templates that you can just use and then change as you see fit. So that can be helpful if you want to create a template for an assignment. You just create one, and then you're kind of good to go. So that is what I briefly wanted to say about Dropbox Paper. For now, happy to take more questions later. Then I want to just go over collecting student work and giving feedback, okay? And so this can be done in a couple of ways. The first way is how I've been doing it, but these are classes of 15 students, so you can do it. So I set up for the semester an individual shared folder with the student, and they just put their homework there, okay? So if you have a small class, that is something that can work. Then Valerie earlier in the chat gave a shout out to this amazing feature, this share request, okay? I added a link to something some more info about that. That is basically, you can generate a request that you can send to people via email, or you can even copy the link. And the people, so the persons you're sending it to, you see, they do not have to have a Dropbox account. And you're just collecting work that way. And you tell Dropbox, put all these homeworks in this folder, okay? and the magic happens. And you can even set a deadline. You can say this needs to be there by this date, and I'll accept late submissions. So that's a great feature to use. So to use the share request. And then in a bit, I will also tell you a little bit more about how you can collect student work via Blackboard through Dropbox. But what I wanted to spend a little bit time on now is to highlight some of the ways you can give feedback on a variety of file types, because this was really what sold me to using Dropbox. The first is a Word document. So when a student in my shared folder uploads a Word document, and that's true also for a PDF or for a video or for an audio file, I will be able to see that document in the following way as a preview, okay? So this is a lot of file types you can generate a preview. And one way I can give feedback, and this is actually similar to some of the function of assignments on Blackboard, is I can just go with my cursor over a particular point, and I can leave a particular comment there. So Wikipedia, no, that's not okay. All right. And so then I move on and it stays connected to this particular spot. Okay. You can do this also with PDFs. And so I can just go through the assignment and leave comments wherever that's fit, and they will appear here. The other way to give feedback, and this will allow you to give a bit more detailed feedback, is this feature that I like a lot, and it's called Word for the Web. It's basically the Microsoft Office integration within Dropbox. And so you would go to your document and open, and you would, if you have Dropbox installed on your computer, you'll see these three options. If you don't, then you will only see Word for the Web, okay? So then you click, and it will probably ask you to log in again, even though I did before. So you'll have to be comfortable with a lot of signing in. I think I need to write the whole thing, but let's see. Yes. So there you go. But you do that for the first time, and then you do your grading. So you just have to be, I always tell them yes and still. Okay. All right. And so then you will see just the Word document in the web version. And so the thing that I absolutely like about this is that I don't need to download anything on my computer. I'm giving my feedback on the web, and I can still give my comment here on Wikipedia. There's a role for Wikipedia. I'm too harsh here, but I can also cross this out. So yeah, I can give everything you do with the review function on Word, you can do here too. So this is really useful because students submit their work as a Word document. I don't even need to download it. I give them feedback. And my way to go about this, there are probably other ways. When I'm done, I just put in the title -feedback, and they know that I have seen it. And so then it's saved again on Blackboard, on Dropbox, okay, too many products. So this is a great, great feature. Let me just move this so I can go back. All right. So the same is true for PDF. Again, you can get a preview, give comments. There are a couple of additional apps you can add. And why would you want to do that? It's because maybe you want the changes to appear on the PDF, and then you need the app. For the changes to actually appear on the Word document, you need to use Word for the Web. So I linked this all here. You can explore that at your own time. Just quickly showing you, this is the Dropbox paper. And again, I just can leave a comment here and then post it and leave feedback to the student that way. So lots of opportunities. A very neat function of Dropbox as well is that you can leave comments also on video and audio files, and do that with a timestamp. So I have a video here that I uploaded. And so again, I'm in preview, and I can play the video, and then I wanted to comment a minute here, and you see the timestamp here changed, and you can just enter your feedback at a particular point. And this could also be something that you can do with students, that they have to comment on a video. Same for audio. One thing I discovered with the timestamp, this is a neat feature that needs to be part of the product, the Dropbox you have. So that's not a feature of your personal Dropbox, but it is a feature of your CUNY Dropbox, because I was trying to figure out why I couldn't leave a comment, and it was because I was using my personal Dropbox. All right, so instructions all for that. Then I'm going to wrap it up. Dropbox and Blackboard, they play well together. You have here a link to the Blackboard page on Dropbox and the other way around. But basically you go to build content and then you will look for mashups, Dropbox, it's the last item, and you will just once give the permission to link Blackboard with your Dropbox, and then anytime you want to add a file, you can just go through the directory and you find whatever you want to add. And this is, like, I saw videos a lot in the initial chat. This is great for sharing videos on Dropbox. You do not want to upload the MP4 file on Dropbox, on Blackboard. But if you do it with the Dropbox link, it doesn't take up much space. So that's a great advantage. And also the same way you can use your Dropbox integration in Blackboard to share files. Students can do the same. So this is, I think, a very neat feature. So just to wrap it up, last thing, some of you might want to use Dropbox instead of Blackboard, which I briefly did. And as you can see, you can do a lot of the things that we use Blackboard for. It's, of course, much more minimal, but you can share materials, you can collect work, and you can give feedback without even having to download anything or use your email. Grading is always the issue. There's no grade book. There's no Blackboard Grade Center equivalent on Blackboard. So your options are to do what Jeff does and just have a feedback sheet for every student. You can use an Excel workbook, or you can just say, you know what, I'm just going to use the Blackboard Grade Center to collect my grades, and that's fine too. But I just wanted to share that if you want to say, no more Blackboard, which I don't know who of us feels that way, but you could, I was able to run my class with Dropbox and then with a video conferencing tool, and that worked fine in the spring. So I also just wanted to show you that you can add to Showcase all kinds of images and other links. And so this is the moment where I'll just stop sharing and ask if there are any questions.